Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH Rebirth of Emperor Yang episode number 4 based on novel. So let's start. This is not because there are few stone tablets, but because most of the stone tablets have long been purchased by those powerful people, and only a fraction of them can appear on the market. Therefore, as long as there are stone tablets, they are usually auctioned in some grand auctions. The reason why Yuanqing's soul source has not dissipated for so long is because of his strength. However, if Yuanqing's soul source stays outside for a long time, it will affect the soul source, resulting in the stagnation of cultivation and the inability to make progress. Of course, some of it comes from the jade bottle on the ground, because the palm-sized jade bottle was made of the spirit stone. Yuanqing entered the jade bottle at the moment Xiao Yan reminded him just now. I see. No wonder you were so eager to enter the jade bottle. But why don't you refine a flesh body yourself? Xiao Yan nodded as if suddenly aware, and then asked. As soon as the words were said, Yuanqing seemed to have cramps all over his body. Yuanqing forcibly calmed his mind, and then asked with a little expectation in his voice, according to Taoist friend Xiao Yang, do you know how to refine the flesh? Xiao Yang was dumb and his eyelids jumped up slightly. He looked at Yuanqing strangely and asked, Brother Yuanqing, don't you even have such low-level means? Xiao Yang smelled that a strange look appeared on Yang's face, but he felt that his tone of voice was wrong, so he smiled. Yuanqing heard the speech, but the corners of his mouth twitched. Did Xiao Yang really come out to experience it? It's clearly what he came out to attack people. Yuanqing sighed in her heart and explained to Xiao Yang. Refining the flesh is a matter of life, but anyone who can refine the flesh has been taken away by the high level of the great power. The rest, except for a few powerful elders who don't want to be controlled by others, are just guys who only know a little about refining the flesh. Moreover, not everyone has that kind of alchemy. Most of them are in some big forces or ancient families, and outsiders have no chance to get it. When Yuanqing spoke, the envy on his face was revealed. But Xiao Yang was speechless for a while. The method of refining the flesh body is basically a low secret skill that can be used as long as he has a little strength in the spirit fighting continent. But I can't even find one here. Tut tut, it seems that I have reached a barren land. Xiao Yang was still sighing, but Yuanqing went on. This is not because there are few secrets to refine the flesh, but because our strength is still too weak. In the eyes of others, our realm strength is just the lowest existence. They simply disdain to help us refine the flesh. Since some of them don't have the real strength of us, but they can refine the flesh, just looking at this is enough to make them despise us. A lot of people at their level. Xiao Yang originally thought that the strength of these people was just like this, but when Xiao Yang heard that the strength of people like them was just a mole of ants, he was slightly surprised. Do Di's strength, however, was just the bottom existence. What a powerful terror there was at the top of the continent. Xiao Yanguang thought about it in his heart. He was a burst of shame. He didn't expect that the alien continent would be so powerful. Xiao Yang thought of what the old devil had said to himself. He had been waiting for himself for 10 years. And he was waiting for himself, but I was also here for the first time. How could there be people I knew, even the Soul Emperor, but he had already died? How could those people find him? It seems that he will return to the days of experience alone in the past, but it's good, let me unlock this layer of fog step by step. Xiao Yang thought about what happened today, and then nodded fiercely. His eyes were full of perseverance. Xiao Yang helped Yuanqing refine the flesh again with his original materials for a period of time, and Yuanqing also knew what Xiao Yang had to do, so he quickly left after adapting to the new flesh and left the rest of the time to Xiao Yang alone. After Yuanqing left, Xiao Yang's eyes fell straight on the broken mountain. Xiao Yang's eyes were hot at the moment, and the blood in his chest surged continuously. After determining that there was no one around, he flew to a huge crack in the mountain. After Xiao Yang bullied into the cave, there was a spacious cave, so dozens of people stood side by side. As soon as Xiao Yangang entered, an invisible heat wave came to his face. Xiao Yang ignored it, looked surprised, waved his palm, and a flame light curtain appeared around him, enveloping Xiao Yang in it. The heat wave rolled and bombarded the flame curtain, making a bang, bursting out a ripple like a water wave, and then dissipated in the void. Xiao Yang frowned. Unexpectedly, the heat wave not only has the ability to rebound attacks like the prohibition of the outside world, but also can fight back independently. However, fortunately, the power of these attacks is not large, at least not enough to break Xiao Yang's fighting shield. Xiao Yang was moving forward in the cave, but Xiao Yang found that the more he went inside, The more powerful the heat wave roaring out of the cave was, and the gas mask arranged by Xiao Yang was constantly shaking. But Xiao Yang ignored all this and just kept moving forward. But from Xiao Yang's tightly wrinkled eyebrows, we can know that Xiao Yang's heart is not as calm as his surface. At the moment, there was a sense of horror in Xiao Yang's heart, because whenever the flame and air wave bombarded his flame light curtain, Xiao Yang could find that whenever the invisible air wave burst, there would be a flame that Xiao Yang could not detect into the flame light curtain arranged by Xiao Yang. At first, Xiao Yang thought it was a trace of the origin of the different fire, which was the real great fortune. Xiao Yang didn't refuse anyone and included all his different fire. But when Xiao Yang collected a handful, Xiao Yang was shocked to find that the origin of those strange fires was not the creation of his own chance. However, the spirit of different fire did it intentionally and wanted to seize the different fire in Xiao Yang's body. For these, Xiao Yang also wants to isolate, but Xiao Yang is more surprised to find that he can't peel the strange fire out of his body, but the boned spirit cold fire in his body is being swallowed up. It has been swallowed up in a moment, and now it is impossible to return, because the cave passage behind Xiao Yang has been filled with flames. If you want to return, you have to break through this heavy sea of fire. You can Xiao Yang's strength, but Xiao Yang is not sure that he can go out, so now, you can only continue to move forward. Xiao Yang's face was dignified. At this moment, Xiao Yang finally reached the end of the flame heat wave. However, at the end of the flame heat wave, Xiao Yang didn't find any useful information, even the shadow of different fire. Xiao Yang stood at the end of the passage. In front of Xiao Yang, there was a bottomless abyss. The abyss gave Xiao Yang a feeling that he felt a sense of death when he looked at it. It was obviously a forbidden area. Even Xiao Yang could never stay on the void for even a minute. Only the winding stone platform suspended in the void can give people a sense of survival. Xiao Yang looked to the top. At the top of the stone platform, there was a platform, where there was a seeming fire. The fire was very dark, but it lit up the whole cave. Around the stone platform, there were 6 icicles, which were connected and sent out a raging flame. Under the cover of the flame, Xiao Yang could not see the content, but he was sure that the 6 icicles were by no means mortal. Among those stone terraces, which were about 10 feet wide, were engraved with flame prohibitions, and a burning breath emerged from them, which made Xiao Yang feel numb. However, when Xiao Yang saw the figure on the opposite stone wall, his eyes were slightly stunned. It is a huge stone carving. The whole stone carving presents a silver-white color and emits inging treasure light. The content of the stone carving is an old man. His face is no different from that of ordinary old people, but he stands proudly there. Although his eyes are also carved from stone, they still give people a sense of arrogance. He was dressed in a robe and had no decorative color. His hands carved from stone made a strange handprint, which was full of the extremely mysterious feeling, which made Xiao Yang's eyebrows wrinkle slightly. And the whole stone carving has only one color. It was his hair, a silver white and bright ice crystal like jade ice blue hair. Although it was made of rock, the silver white hair was visible from root to root. Xiao Yang stood where he was, his eyes wide open, looked at the stone carving unbelievably, and spit out 4 words in shock after a long time. Tuo Shegu Emperor. At the same time, in an ice blue hall, an old man with white robes and ice blue hair suddenly opened his closed eyes. Looking at the old man's appearance, he is just like the stone carving. The old man slightly narrowed his eyes and looked at the dome of the hall, and that direction was where Xiao Yang was. There was a little joy in the old man's eyes, but also a faint reluctance to give up, and a relieved smile was slightly aroused in the corners of his mouth. Immediately, I heard the old man's heroic voice ringing through the hall. "Ha ha, you've been here for more than 10 years. Ha ha, some old guys, I think who can compare with me this time, ha ha." The old man looked at the direction where Xiao Yang was, then closed his muddy eyes again, concentrated on cultivation, and quietly waited for Xiao Yang's arrival. In the hall, the old man's silence calmed down instantly. Only the old man's breathing sound was heard in every corner of the hall. Xiao Yang frowned at the huge stone carving opposite, especially the old man's face and his ice blue silver hair. Xiao Yang's beautiful face showed a look of surprise. Unexpectedly, Tuo Shegu Emperor had been here. I can't say that this is the place he left for inheritance. Speaking of it, I'm also half an apprentice of Tuo Shegu Emperor. Hey, Tuo Shegu Emperor, your inheritance, younger generation, I'm not polite. Xiao Yang couldn't help getting excited when he thought that it might be the inheritance place of the ancient Buddha. He closed his palm and rubbed it constantly. He looked like a professional thief. But the next moment, Xiao Yang became serious again. Since it was the inheritance left by the ancient Buddha, it must be extraordinary. No wonder I felt a terrible smell of strange fire before. It seems that the inheritance here is difficult to take. Xiao Yang looked at the endless abyss and the stone terraces suspended in the air. After a little hesitation, he walked towards the first stone platform. When he came near, Xiao Yang was able to see the stone platform completely. It turned out that there was a black thin iron chain in the southeast and northwest directions of Shatai, which hung down to the depths of the abyss invisible to Xiao Yang. There is also a black painted iron chain between each two stone platforms, up to the highest platform emitting bursts of fire. The mysterious runes are also depicted on the root chains. The runes also emit bursts of weak energy light from time to time, making the whole space very mysterious. Xiao Yang's face was a little dignified and murmured in his heart. Unexpectedly, there is such a huge array here. It seems that it is difficult to break through this level. The first level is so difficult. I really don't know how difficult the next level is. Tut tut, Tuoshegu Emperor, you are clearly difficult. Xiao Yang shook his head and sighed while thinking. Before Xiao Yang came to the endless abyss, the corners of his mouth couldn't help twitching a little, and his heart also stirred a little. Xiao Yang calmed his mood slightly and stared at the first stone platform. The legs bent slightly, the body bowed forward, and the soles of the feet stepped on the ground fiercely. The whole body immediately flew away towards the suspended stone platform, which was only 3 or 4 feet away from him. The perfect jump radian in Xiao Yang's imagination did not appear. On the contrary, Xiao Yang's body began to fall down just halfway. While Xiao Yang was shocked, the soles of Xiao Yang's falling feet stepped heavily again and stepped on the dark iron chain. Xiao Yang's body finally took off again. Finally, it landed on the edge of the stone platform. At the moment when Xiao Yang landed, Xiao Yang's body sank involuntarily. However, Xiao Yang didn't care too much, but looked back with a lucky face. But at this look, Xiao Yang saw the originally dark iron chain, but it was emitting a faint light at this time. At the moment, the iron chains in several directions of the stone platform where Xiao Yang is located are also emitting light from the contact point with the stone platform. With the speed visible to the naked eye, it gradually extends to the distance. I believe that before long, the iron chain full of the whole cave will give off a bright light. Xiao Yang became dignified when he saw this face. Once all the iron chains radiated light, it showed that the mysterious array in the cave would be started. At that time, it would be really difficult. Xiao Yang turned his head, frowned, thought carefully, and then wanted to get up. But it made his face slightly changed, but the next moment, it was a smile from the corners of his mouth. With a sudden shock, he stood up, ignored the strong suction force from the soles of his feet and the great pressure from his body, and went straight to the stone platform opposite, as if the pressure on the stone platform was nothing. You should know that Xiao Yang is a strong man with both fighting spirit and physical cultivation. How powerful his physical strength is and how this pressure can be suppressed. With his first experience, Xiao Yang is also gradually familiar with the situation on the stone platform. Although the pressure on the stone platform is bigger and bigger, it is still difficult to defeat Xiao Yang. But Xiao Yang also found that as long as he stepped on a stone platform, the iron chain around the stone platform would be activated, which began to shine and extend further, which made Xiao Yang a little anxious in his heart. And Xiao Yang is also jumping forward again and again. Xiao Yang is only 1 step away from the last stone platform. As long as he takes this step, he is only 1 step away from the platform. Xiao Yang's face full of sweat also showed a comfortable smile, but when Xiao Yang looked at the dark chains around him, his face became ugly again. Xiao Yang stepped forward with heavy steps step by step. It can be seen that at this moment, even Xiao Yang is already a little weak. Bang! Xiao Yang was half kneeling and squatting on the ground, breathing heavily in his mouth, and the sweat on his face fell on the ground like blooming chrysanthemums. Xiao Yang's face was dignified. He looked at the platform only 9 feet away from him, and his teeth rattled. Xiao Yang looked up at the platform close at hand, and then looked at the large array around him. With a horizontal heart and a fierce support with both hands on the ground, the body that was half kneeling on the ground forcibly stood up and looked at the opposite platform with firm eyes. Because the platform was high, Xiao Yang couldn't see what was on the stone platform, but as long as he got there, the divorce fire would not be far away. Thinking of this, Xiao Yang's eyes became more and more firm, and his eyes towards the platform were full of hope. Xiao Yang walked towards the opposite edge of the stone platform under his feet step by step, and the light on the iron chains around him was also extending. Until now, Xiao Yang found that the end of those chains were connected to the 6 icicles. At this time, the 6 icicles are also sending out bursts of glittering and translucent light, echoing those glittering and translucent iron chains. Xiao Yang's complexion changed again. His pace was a little faster and he came to the edge of the stone platform. Looking at the platform a little higher than the stone platform, I took a deep breath. My body bowed forward again. My legs diverged in a bow shape and bent slightly. In a moment, I suddenly shot away at the platform. Xiao Yang looked at the platform closer and closer to himself and the faint fluorescence that was about to connect with the 6 icicles, but he was very anxious in his heart. Fast. Fast. Almost. Finally, with the cry in Xiao Yang's heart, Xiao Yang finally landed on the platform before the fluorescence connected with the icicle. Xiao Yang took a look at the fluorescence that was about to touch, turned his head and looked at the center of the platform, but he was a little stunned. The center of the platform was not a different fire that should have existed, but a vertical downward hole. The diameter of the hole was about 10 feet long, and the whole body was ice blue, emitting a light shimmer. The upper part of the whole hole illuminated was dazzling and dazzling. Xiao Yang is also an experienced man. After a few breaths, he stepped on the ground and rushed towards the hole. He saw that he was only a few feet away from the hole. But at this critical time, the whole platform where Xiao Yang was really shining brightly, and a light column went straight to the sky, which made Xiao Yang's eyes narrowed. Xiao Yang's heart roared violently, and his forward body didn't retreat but advance. The soles of his feet stepped heavily on the ground again, and shot away at the light column more rapidly. But just as Xiao Yang was about to enter the light column, Xiao Yang suddenly changed his face. His palm fiercely hit forward and hit the light column in front of him heavily. Boom! A startling noise came from the place where Xiao Yang's palm was bombarded. A huge shock force churned the qi and blood in Xiao Yang's body, and his body retreated to the edge of the platform before he stopped. At this moment, Xiao Yang naturally knew what had happened. Xiao Yang's eyes narrowed slightly and looked at the rising light column in front of him, and his fighting qi slowly moved all over his body. A moment later, the light column gradually dissipated and revealed something in it. Opposite Xiao Yang, in front of the hole, there were 6 ice dragons hundreds of feet long. The huge dragon mouth roared and sent out bursts of cold breath, which made some fine ice debris appear in the space, but at the moment of the ice debris, it was swallowed by a fierce heat. It turns into bursts of fog, rises and dissipates in the void. Up to now, if Xiao Yang can't recognize the different fire sealed by himself, it will really tarnish Xiao Yang's title of Yang Emperor. At the moment when Xiao Yang saw the 6 ice dragons, he knew what kind of strange fire was in the mountain. The strange fire here was obviously one of the longest kinds of strange fire Xiao Yang had dealt with, and it was also the first kind of strange fire Xiao Yang had seen, bone spirit cold fire. Unexpectedly, the strange fire sealed here will be bone spirit cold fire. It seems that if you want to get this bone spirit cold fire, you have to break through this level first. Xiao Yang looked at the 6 ice dragons, shook his head slightly and sighed. Then he raised his fighting spirit and prepared for the next battle. The 6 ice dragons seemed to know that Xiao Yang was about to start fighting. Therefore, the huge bodies that had been entrenched around each other began to twist, emitting a frightening dragon power. With Xiao Yang's strength, we can naturally feel it. I'm afraid the strength of these 6 ice dragons has reached the point of fighting the Emperor. Even compared with themselves, I'm afraid they are just a weak line. Unexpectedly, the ice dragon condensed by the array is so powerful that it still has a trace of the prestige of the dragon family. It seems that this array is not simple. Xiao Yang felt the terrible dragon power of the ice dragon. He sighed in his heart. Looking at the 6 dragons, Xiao Yang suddenly burst into a hot war in his eyes. His body flashed and rushed towards the 6 ice dragons. One punch hit the first dragon, and the dragon showed no weakness. The huge dragon claws suddenly clenched into a fist and greeted it with one punch. Together with Xiao Yang's fists, the fists intersected with each other. In a short time, a bombing sound like thunder rang through the cave, making the whole cave roar. Xiao Yang and the dragon took a step back respectively. The dragon's huge dragon body swung and rushed towards Xiao Yang again. Xiao Yang laughed, moved his mind and burst into a bright golden light. A majestic dragon power emanated from Xiao Yang. Xiao Yang roared up to the sky. Suddenly, an arrogant dragon chant echoed in the cave. Even the whole mountain shook violently, and the golden light dispersed. Xiao Yang was covered with purple and golden dragon scales, but this is not over. Xiao Yang's hands are still changing and printing. The golden light that had faded suddenly became bright again. Xiao Yang's body also began to change and gradually increased. In just a few breaths, Xiao Yang had turned into a golden giant as high as 9 feet and 9 feet. Xiao Yang looked at the giant dragon flying in front of him and blew it out with one blow, hitting the giant dragon claw hard. Xiao Yang suddenly gave a loud roar. The power of the huge golden fist intensified fiercely. One punch reversed the bombardment of the ice dragon in front of him. The seal not in Xiao Yang's hand changed again. The ancient imperial seal in the imperial seal was displayed by Xiao Yang. He slapped it on the dragon's body and blew it away heavily. Xiao Yang stopped fighting after this move, but waited quietly in place. The remaining 5 ice dragons looked at the beaten ice dragon, roared in bursts, stared at Xiao Yang with vicious eyes, and surrounded Xiao Yang. Since you can't hide, let's have a good fight. Xiao Yang grinned and roared in his mouth. Looking at the 5 ice dragons gathered around, his huge body suddenly bombarded them. His huge fist rushed towards the head of an ice dragon, and the other hand was a record of ancient imperial seal, and his huge foot was unwilling to fall behind. The level 8 avalanche that had not been used for a long time was bombarded by Xiao Yang towards another dragon, and even Huangquan Tianyu was used. Although Xiao Yang's attack power is not weak and all his moves are fierce, the 5 dragons are really not weak. They are only slow for a moment under the yellow spring Tianyu. After a moment, they rush towards Xiao Yang again. These dragons themselves are made of bone spirit cold fire and are also the attack means of the array. I see that those powerful attacks are coming. Each dragon's body lit up a white flame, and its mouth also ejected flame beams, which finally fused together and turned into a strong flame light column, shooting at Xiao Yang. Xiao Yang's face was dignified when he saw this. The strength of each of these dragons was almost the same as that of him. At the moment, these dragons integrated their attacks together, and the power would double. Xiao Yang looked at the flame beam closer and closer to him, stretched his hands forward and leveled with his chest. With a bang, the gorgeous flame rose in the palm of his hand, and patted his hands hard. Little sparks burst into stars in the void. The fire in Xiao Yang's hand soared, and the flame wrapped Xiao Yang's palm in it. Xiao Yang looked at the 5 dragons getting closer and closer, and his body was fighting fiercely towards the strange fire in his palm. The movement of his hand was faster and faster. After a few breaths, Xiao Yang's huge golden body slammed into the flame light column and forcibly blocked the light column with his own body. The fire in his hand became brighter and brighter. When Xiao Yang rushed to the 5 dragons with his injured body, his right hand suddenly pushed forward, and a gorgeous lotus flew out of Xiao Yang's hand and shot straight at the 5 dragons. At the same time, Xiao Yang roared. Buddha angry lotus. Burst. Boom. A loud noise spread to the whole cave. Xiao Yang's huge body hit the stone wall of the cave, and cracks like spider webs spread around Xiao Yang. The 5 dragons were also covered with scars and were blown upside down, and even the first ice dragon was embedded in the stone wall. Boom! Xiao Yang's huge feet kicked hard on the broken stone wall, and his huge body suddenly flew away towards the hole in the center of the stone platform. After Xiao Yang's huge figure also flew out, he changed back to his original appearance. His face was a little pale, his mouth was covered with trace of blood, and his white robe was messy and looked very embarrassed, but its forward body still gives people a powerful feeling full of power, which makes people feel an incomparable powerful pressure, as if everything in the world is under its feet. Roar. Suddenly, a complete sound of dragon singing sounded out of thin air. The original 6 ice dragons disappeared and replaced by a giant dragon with a huge body and full of 1/5 of the size of the whole cave space. As soon as Xiao Yang's body fell on the platform, he quickly dodged to one side. A huge dragon tail flashed past Xiao Yang's place, bringing a gust of wind, blowing Xiao Yang's clothes and robes. The cold wind brought by the dragon tail made Xiao Yang's skin tingle like a knife. Xiao Yang's figure kept flashing, and finally stopped at the edge of the platform. His eyes were full of dignified color. The huge body of the ice dragon hovered over the cave. Xiao Yang glanced at the statue of Tuoshegu Emperor, which was smashed by its blow, and his eyes showed a suspicious color. But he couldn't help thinking about it. The dragon attacked again and patted Xiao Yang's head with one claw. If he caught it with one claw, Xiao Yang would die here on the spot. Xiao Yang didn't hesitate and struck it with the palm of his right hand. At the same time, his mouth was wide open, and his left hand pointed to the dragon's forehead. Huangquan palm, Huangquan finger, Huangquan Tianyu. Moo, moo. The dragon just wanted to move, but when he saw that finger, his 2 dragon claws went up together and grabbed down angrily towards Xiao Yang's 2 hands. The huge dragon eyes were full of rage. Because, Xiao Yang, it's not good for him to use the yellow spring finger, but he uses the middle finger. Now it makes the ice dragon really angry. Boom. This time, Xiao Yang retreated 100 feet with each other, But the dragon didn't give Xiao Yang a chance to breathe. As soon as he stopped, the whole body sent out a palpitating cold air, but in the cold air, there was also a very fierce and domineering flame breath, which made people feel that the temperature of the whole body was constantly changing between extreme cold and extreme heat. Roar! The dragon suddenly sent out a light beam. The light beam was dazzling. It wrapped the whole dragon into a part of the light beam and shot at Xiao Yanbiao. The blow was powerful enough to shake the sky and break the void. It seemed that under this move, everything was mole ants and nothing. Xiao Yang's face was extremely dignified. In the palm of his hand, different fires emerged. The different fires continued to surround in the middle of his palm, faster and faster, and finally formed a flame aperture. The flame aperture continued to rotate, absorbing the aura of heaven and earth. In the center of the flame aperture, a thumb-sized black spot continued to spread until it occupied the center of the whole flame aperture. Xiao Yang looked at the energy beam that was getting closer and closer to him. The flame aperture in his hand stood flat, and the black part in the middle was aimed at the energy beam. Xiao Yang gently spit out 4 words. Buddha anger reincarnation, boom. Between heaven and earth, a violent energy wave swept from a tall mountain in the distant forest. Within thousands of miles, no one, whether human or warcraft, survived. Boom. In the cave, the smoke and dust are scattered. On a small platform, 2 figures stand opposite each other. Standing at both ends of the platform, a huge ice dragon crawls behind a white figure in front of him. The smoke and dust in the sky will automatically disperse in the distance in front of the old man, so that people can see his face clearly. The man is wearing a plain white robe and lost his hands behind him, a head of ice blue long hair draped over his shoulder, with some traces of vicissitudes of life on his face. It looks no different from ordinary old people, but the smile on his mouth makes people feel a mysterious smell. At the moment, the old man is looking at Xiao Yang with a little smile and a trace of helplessness on his face. Xiao Yang looked as 2 peas in the face of the familiar old man, who had always been calm. At the moment, he was very shocked, because now he was standing on the opposite side of Xiao Yang, no other people, just like the huge stone carving. Hey, boy, do you want to destroy my cave? The old man looked at Xiao Yang Dao with some teasing in his eyes, but Xiao Yang was stunned when he heard this. Cave? That doesn't mean that the spirit of different fire is not self-sealing, but practicing in isolation. In this way, he not only demolished others' homes, but also disturbed others' isolation. Xiao Yang was stunned. He had been fighting for a long time before he came here, but in the end, it was someone else's closed cave. Think about the previous prohibition, isn't it used to drive away and frighten those people with low strength? When he thought of this, Xiao Yang's face twitched. In this way, all he did became disturbing others' cleaning. Isn't the strange fire you're about to get a joke bubble? As we all know, fires should not be disturbed when they are closed, because once the closed person is breaking through at that time, and people outside suddenly interrupt the closed person's breakthrough, what they commit is equivalent to the hatred of life and death, because once the breakthrough is interrupted, the mottled and chaotic energy of heaven and earth in the friar cannot be suppressed and refined, and they rush and collide in the friar, destroying the friar's meridians and collaterals will make the friar's body angry and violent, and there is a risk of explosion. If this happens, the friar's future will be destroyed, the friar's accomplishments will stagnate, or the friar's body will explode and die on the spot. At this time, Xiao Yang obviously has violated this mainland rule, but even if he has violated it, look at the seemingly kind-hearted old man in front of him. Xiao Yang admits that if the 2 people are opposite, he may not be able to take over each other's move. Xiao Yang's face became more and more dignified, while the dragon behind the old man roared a few times. The old man in plain clothes immediately turned his head and glared at the dragon. The dragon quickly shut up and stopped making a sound, but he could feel the meaning of watching jokes from his pair of giant longans, which made Xiao Yang feel strange. Suddenly, Xiao Yang seemed to think of something. He suddenly looked up at the old man in plain clothes, stared at the old man, and said, "You are an imperial pill, otherwise, how can you look like Tuoshegu Emperor? You should also be a pill refined by Tuoshegu Emperor." Poof! He had already taken out a bottle of wine. The wine that had not been swallowed in the mouth of the plain old man who was drinking was suddenly sprayed out by him. As soon as the wind blew, all the wine fell on the old man's wrinkled face. The old man ignored the wine on his face and looked at Xiao Yang angrily, while the giant dragon behind him had a mouth open and trembled violently. There was almost a startling and complete dragon roar, and a pair of huge longans were full of water spray. Xiao Yang also seemed to find that he had said something wrong, but it was irreparable, so he had to stand still and wait for the answer of the old man in plain clothes. A moment later, The old man finally had a reaction. He looked away and said to Xiao Yang, "Little rabbit, an emperor's young pill can make such a deep impression on you. It's really a poor boy who has never seen the world. Come with me. I'll tell you who I am in person so that you can have some insight. Otherwise, hey, in this continent, your eyesight can be justified in the periphery. When you get to the middle of the continent, cut." The old man in plain clothes burst into laughter while talking. Xiao Yang kept turning his lips, but he was more curious about the old man. The old man in plain clothes obviously knew himself very well. It seems that there are many things he didn't know about himself. Xiao Yang followed the old man in plain clothes into the hall where the old man used to be. Xiao Yang saw 3 words written on the plaque in the hall. Yogu Temple. Xiao Yang took a look and continued to follow the old man in plain clothes into the hall. When entering the hall, it was no different from some ordinary discussion halls. The only difference was that there were only 2 seats and a futon in the whole hall. I couldn't figure out what the role was. Xiao Yang skipped it directly. The old man in plain clothes motioned Xiao Yang to sit on the seat. The seats were placed together and matched with a table. Xiao Yang sat directly on the seat without talking. He just sat on the seat quietly. Xiao Yang knew that next, he should be able to know his doubts. Sure enough, when Xiao Yang sat down, the old man in plain clothes also sat down. With a wave of his sleeve robe, a set of tea utensils appeared, and escaped in the hall with a hot fog. "My name is Guyo. My body is bone spirit cold fire. It is the different fire of heaven and earth. It can burn all things in the world. I followed Tuoshegu Emperor here in the past and waited here according to the order of Tuoshegu Emperor." When Jiuyu spoke, his tone was filled with a sense of arrogance. His old face was full of arrogance, but Xiao Yang heard a trace of other meaning in his words. Jiuyu was waiting for someone. Now that Guyo said it in front of Xiao Yang's face, it must be himself. Xiao Yang suddenly became nervous when he thought of it. He didn't know why, but Xiao Yang has always had a special feeling until now. He needs strength and strong strength, and this. Xiao Yang hesitated a little and asked Jiuyu, "I think I can take what you just said and think that you are waiting for someone. If you are waiting for someone, then if that person is right, it is me, right?" Jiuyu nodded and continued, "My task is to help you get all the contents of your practice and help you achieve great success." Xiao Yang was fascinated, but he suddenly heard all the contents of his practice. Hearing this, Xiao Yang looked up in an instant, his eyes filled with an incredible look, and stared at the old man in plain clothes in front of him. Xiao Yang knew the words of the old man in plain clothes very clearly. The skill that the old man in plain clothes said was naturally the skill Xiao Yang practiced, burning. Xiao Yang swallowed a mouthful of saliva with a thud in his throat. His eyes were full of hot looking at the old man in plain clothes. His whole body trembled because of excitement. Until a long time later, Xiao Yang asked with a slightly dry and dumb voice, "You mean, there's still the second part of burning determination? Can burning determination continue to strengthen?" The old man in plain clothes listened to Xiao Yang's dry and hoarse voice and knew that Xiao Yang was absolutely excited at the moment. Therefore, he didn't joke and nodded to Xiao Yang. Seeing this, Xiao Yang was very excited. He just wanted to ask, but Jiuyu said again, "Although I will help you to practice burning determination to a great level, you still need to get the whole part of the skill by yourself, because even I have only 1/5 of the full version of burning determination, and the other 4 parts are in the hands of the other 4 guys. But whether you can get them depends on yourself." Xiao Yang originally looked at Jiuyu with both eyes sighing, but when he heard the following sentence, he shrank back and looked at Jiuyu with a depressed face. Jiuyu was also quite depressed and helpless. This was also done by Tuoshegu Emperor at the beginning. How can it be all blamed on him? But the next moment, Xiao Yang who responded asked, "You said the other 4 parts were in the hands of others. Do you know who those 4 people are? Why don't you take them back?" Xiao Yang wanted to ask, but it seemed that he suddenly thought of something. His eyes looked at Jiuyu in shock and said again, "Or, you are not the opponent of those 4 guys. Are they better than you?" Jiuyu was listening to Xiao Yang's random guess about the whereabouts of the 4 parts of the residual skills, but suddenly heard what Xiao Yang had just said. His eyes became excited, and roared loudly, saying, "You young generation, how can you say that to please the elders? How can those 4 old guys be my opponents? What's more, I wait for the inheritor first. How can they be compared with me? Hey." It seems that he suddenly thought of what he said and turned to see Xiao Yang's gloomy face. Jiuyu suddenly stayed in place and stopped talking until Xiao Yang looked at Jiuyu with his eyes open for a long time. Alas. You boy, it seems that you said so deliberately because you think I won't hurt you. Well, I'll tell you sooner or later. I'm Jiyu. I'm one of the 5 Yang Seal acupoints. Jiyu acupoint is the person waiting for me. At the beginning, Tuor Shigu Emperor, that is, the Numenon of our 5 people, was born from the fighting spirit continent and integrated many different fires. Finally, he reached the peak in this continent. On the day of its breakthrough, heaven and earth trembled, fire and rain fell, and the 8 wastelands burned up. It was like the catastrophe of the mainland. The earth shook constantly, and the magma rushed into the sky like a spring. Corresponding to the fire and rain, there was a sea of fire in the sky and underground, and the whole continent became a human purgatory. Seeing this, Emperor Tuo Shegu called the spirit of heaven and earth with his ability to connect heaven and earth, reshaped all things in the mainland, and all creatures in the world survived. After 100 years, because he tasted all the things in the world, he wanted to return to the world between heaven and earth, but because there was a secret on the mainland that had not yet been settled, so he kept it for inheritance until someone came to take it. But I was afraid of being taken away by those who deceived the good, so 5 of us were later differentiated from the body, so that we could choose inheritors here, and they scattered their cultivation and died in the world. Who tilde you should know when I say this. Finally, Jiyu breathed out a long breath, which made him say with a little excitement in his heart. Xiao Yang nodded, but then raised his head, frowned and asked Jiyu. Since the Tuor Shigu Emperor dissipated on this continent, what about the Tuor Shigu Emperor's cave on the Duki continent? Well, why don't you allow a living person to stay in the cave? Hey, it's just a cave. What's the fuss? Jiyu listened to the casual pick of his eyebrows and then said blandly. Xiao Yang still looked at Jiyu suspiciously, but he didn't see anything. Finally, he had to give up thinking. Just in his heart, he suddenly felt a little confused about the strange fire square far above the fighting continent. It seemed that there was something he didn't know attracting him, but it was interrupted by Guyo. But Xiao Yang said in a daze. That strange fire square, how seems to have just seen it somewhere. Hearing this, the pupil suddenly shrinks. In an ice-blue hall with the same body, 2 figures in white robes sit opposite each other, one old and one young, holding teacups in their hands and drinking tea lightly. Suddenly, Xiao Yang asked Jiyu. Elder Jiyu, since you say you are one of the 5 Yang Seal acupoints, the other 4 people must be the other ones in the 5 Yang Seal acupoints. Jiyu was not surprised when she heard the speech, but nodded, put down the teacup in her hand and said, yes, the 5 Yang Seal acupoints are composed of 5 different fires in heaven and earth. As long as one of the 5 different fires is still alive, the 5 Yang Seal acupoints will not disappear and will always exist in the world. The other 4 people in the 5 Yang Seal acupoints lie in 4 different directions on the continent, and they also master the other 4 parts of burning fire people, but our tasks are different from each other, and the degree of test will be different. At that time, whether you can obtain the remnant of the burning determination skill depends on you. As for who the 4 of them are, I can only tell you 2 of them first, because the other 2, not to mention you, but also me, are difficult to find them, so I won't say more. If you find them, it depends on the chance. Next, Guyo also explained the identities of the 2 people to Xiao Yang. One of them, known as Hailaro in the world, was named Haimo Dust. The body was Haishin Flame. It was in the north of the mainland, where there was a vast sea, and the Wuyen Seal Cave was there. The old man also founded some Beihai Academy there. Maybe you can go and have a look, but it's just a broken academy. It's no big deal. Jiyu tilted her eyes and said. Xiao Yang didn't take it to heart and continued to listen. However, if Xiao Yang doesn't take it to heart, it doesn't mean that others don't take it to heart. Just when Jiyu said that, in a wooden house far away in the North Sea, an old man wearing a blue robe and an old face sneezed for no reason, then frowned slightly and muttered. Which old man is speaking ill of me? Jiyu continued to explain to Xiao Yang. The second one is a woman, but Jiyu's voice suddenly increased a lot, but at the same time, it also meant some caution, and then continued. Don't underestimate women. Even ordinary women can't bear this woman. She is arrogant, lonely and indifferent to people. Once she starts, it will really kill people. But that's why she has only accepted one apprentice since then, and I'm afraid it would be difficult if her apprentice is not of the same character as her. I can't stand her. Well, her danger has been told to you. I'll talk about her body for you. Her body is Honglian Yagonglian, also known as Hongliangu. She is in the fire maple forest in the extreme south. She can't go out all year round, and only her disciples are outside. Therefore, if you want to go there, I suggest you think of the old guy Himoken first. That guy can't help you. She is much more talkative than Yi Honglian, and the old guy is addicted to alcohol. Maybe as long as you prepare more good wine, the old guy will follow you, ha ha. Jiuyu said that in the end, it seems that Himo Dust followed him. When Xiao Yang heard Jiuyu's words just now, he raised his eyebrows, and an excited look appeared in his eyes. He talked with the old man Jiuyu for so long in order to want Jiuyu to follow him at last. But now, listening to the meaning of Jiuyu's words, he thinks that the 5 people of Jiuyu are supposed to follow the inheritors of Tuoshegu Emperor. In this way, don't you save a lot of trouble and get 5 different fires that have existed for more than 1,000 years? Tut tut, this kind of fire is more powerful than the general 4 or 5 different fires. Xiao Yang was thinking happily in his heart, but Jiuyu glanced at him, shook his head and said, "Don't think about it. If it were as simple as you think, I would have followed you long ago. Although the 5 of us really want to follow the inheritor, it also depends on whether the inheritor has the talent and strength that we admire. Your strength now, tut tut, if you didn't meet me, it would be impossible for others." Xiao Yang was stunned for a moment before he reacted. His eyebrows were slightly picked, his mouth was cracked, his eyes were dry, looking at the Bonyu, and his face was curious about the baby. Xiao Yang naturally knows that since the 5 elders will follow him, it must be accompanied by many not simple tests, just as Xiao Yang entered the Guyo cultivation cave this time. This video will end here.